We acknowledge and respect the traditional custodians whose ancestral lands we are meeting upon here today. We acknowledge the deep feelings of attachment and relationships of Aboriginal people to country. We also pay respect to the cultural authority of Aboriginal people visiting and attending from other areas of South Australia present to here. Okay, I can see there's a few people that, or a few names I recognise from different training sessions. So hopefully most people are familiar now with Teams. I have turned on reactions, so if you've got a question, you can use the reactions. So you can put your hand up. If you can give me a thumbs up now if you're hearing me okay and can find the reactions. Thanks, Jenna. Thank you. Roni. Howard, you might not be able to access the reactions because you've joined as a guest. So hopefully you can hear me because the others can. Okay, so we skip this section, but I do want to start off with a poll just so I can have a bit of more of an understanding of where you sit in terms of class notebook. Now, the question is about class teams, because if you've had a quick look at the training summary for tonight, you'll notice we start off with class teams. So I'm just going to launch this one first of all. So you will see in a moment a poll pop up. And if you can just indicate whether you've used class teams before, because this is important in terms of class notebook. Okay, let's stop that now. Okay, so some of you do use class teams, which is great, and some of you don't. Now, the reason why we start with class teams is because although you can use class notebook, I should put my camera on, shouldn't I? So you can see you're talking to a real person. So although you can use class notebook independently from Teams, it's very hard to then go back and use class Teams if you've already established your class notebook. But if you start with a class notebook from Teams, you can forget about the team and just use the class notebook. But then if you decide to use some of the features of class Teams at a later stage, it's already set up for you. So I'm just going to start by sharing my screen, and we will start in Teams because some people haven't used it before. And even if you have, you might not know how to get to class notebook from Teams. Now, this workshop is a bit more hands-on. So if you can possibly have, let me just put this one up. If you can possibly have either two screens, or if you don't have access to two screens, one tip you can use is on your keyboard. If you press the Windows key and either the right or the left arrow, that allows you to split your screen. So then hopefully you can see what I'm doing on half your screen and be able to follow along as well. Okay, so I've got Teams open, and I'm just going to go ahead and create a new team. So if you want to do this as well, you can. So I've got the join or create team up the top here. and I'm going to click on Create Team. Now, whenever you create a new team in Teams, you've got 4 options. If you're using Teams with students or you want a class notebook, definitely go for the class option. If you're using it as a staff or as a PLC or something like that, don't click on these 2 which you're tempted to, but just go for the other. Now, the reason why is these 2 set up OneNotes quite specifically, as does a class team, but you're quite restricted in what other things you can add. So that's why we say if you're using it with students, click on class. Otherwise, ignore the names of these 2 and just go for others. Okay, so let's click on class. And we're just going to give it a name. Now, don't worry, you can delete this team after, but if you can create a team, then you can do a bit of experimenting as we're going along. Okay, now I will get you to add 1 student. So it doesn't have to be a student, and in fact, because this is a test, I would suggest not adding one of your students, but maybe adding a colleague, or even if you look at the people in this webinar, I'm sure one of them wouldn't mind you adding them in as a student. As I said, you can delete this afterwards. I'm lucky I've got a student as well as my teacher account, so I'm going to add the student version of me in there. Can you just give me a thumbs up if you've been able to follow along so far? Or come off mute and yell out okay. Or type in the chat. Excellent. Thanks, Hayley. Thanks, Roni. Jenna, are you going okay? And Howard? Thanks, Jenna. Okay, hopefully Howard's going okay. Right, we're going to close that, and then we've got our brand new team. Now you'll notice when it opens, it has some sections already open for us. You can use the class team as a way of communicating with your students, but the section that we're really interested in is this class notebook section. So I'm going to skip a bit of the training summary. And if you're looking at the training summary as well, we're going to actually go down to the bit that starts with class notebook. So that's on page 2, about halfway down. Right, so I'll get you to click on class notebook. And this is going to take a while to set up because it's the first time. And this is a brand new team. Now you've got 2 options. I would start with a blank notebook just because I can always bring in pages or sections from other notebooks, but you can bring that in at this stage as well. Let's click on blank. And Microsoft sets up these sections for you. So there's a collaboration space where students can collaborate together. There's a content library, which is only where teachers add things. The teacher only section, which is really fantastic because that's only viewable by the teachers, so students don't even see this appear. So that's a really great section for doing all your planning. And then each student you add also has a section in there. So let's click on next. Now these ones as well, you can, if you've thought about how you want to set up your notebook, add sections here already or delete sections. I normally just leave this as standard, and then I can always go back in and add some different sections later on. But let's just leave it as the standard and click on create. Now this is going to take a little bit of time to create. So while we're waiting for that, I'm just going to go into Notebook and I'm going to show you an example of a class notebook so you can get a little bit of an idea of what the different sections are about. So this is one that's a bit of a mishmash from some that I've used as a teacher. My background is primary or upper primary. I've used class notebook for many years in my teaching, both with students that had one-to-one devices, but also in situations where the students didn't have readily access to devices. I loved it because I could have it up on my board. So even if the students can't access it all the time, me as the teacher can stay organised and access the different content all the time. So we've got this first section, which is where I put my welcome, my class agreement, things that I'm going to access all the time. The collaboration space, which is where students can collaborate. So this is an example here of a brainstorming that I did in a science lesson where I got the students to add into a what you think you know table. And you can see down the side here, let's just add or make that a bit bigger. There's all these different initials, which is telling me which students actually edited these sections. So if I click or right click on there, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't because it's a copied one. It's telling me that it's me that's done them all. But normally, if this was real students, rather, here's one. So it's telling me the student that edited that section. You can also set the permissions around here to allow or to stop collaboration if that is an issue in your class, but you can also set different sections so that if you're working in groups, you can have all the sections in here visible to everyone, but only certain sections writable for the different groups. So you've got lots of flexibility there. The content library is where you store your resources that you want visible to students. So if I was in a high school context, this might be where I have all my coursework set out. I might also use it on my whiteboard, on my interactive whiteboard. This is again a primary example where I've got a maths or a printout of a maths game that I want my students to play. And then I'm doing my explaining, writing on my interactive whiteboard on the side there. Now, the really nice thing is that I can come back in here the next time we play that game and all that's visible and all my writing's visible as well. I'm going to go hide authors to get rid of that. Okay, another example in the English. So you can see here again, I might have been working on this for one lesson and then I can come back to it the next lesson. Another nice thing about Notebook or OneNote, if you haven't used OneNote before, is that the page is never ending. So if I filled up this bit of the page one lesson, I don't need to add a new page. I can just keep on going about my punctuation if I wanted to. Okay, the next section is the teacher only section. And here is where I can do all my planning. So for example, this is an example of my spelling. If I've already worked out all my spelling for the whole term, I can, let's just put that back for the moment. I can pop my spelling in here. And then when I want these pages to be visible in the content library, I can just go and copy or move them to make them visible for students. I'm just going to pop into another notebook for a moment So this is one that I was actually using rather than a mishmash of different pages. Um, and this one here, I worked or I co-taught with a teacher. So you can see some things are written in French and some things are in English. So here, this was a different teacher that was using the teacher-only space. Also, specialist teachers, if you give them access to your notebook, they can come in and do the planning in this space as well. And as a student, I can't see any of that. So that's all hidden from my students. Hi, Sonia. Excuse me. Okay. I just hop back into that example again and show you the last section. Excuse me, I might just mute myself while I cough. Excuse me. Right. Okay, so the last section is the notebooks that are for my students. So each student that you've added to your class team will automatically get a page in the class notebook. And if you remember, we started off and we just went with the basics. So they've all got a class notes section, they've all got a handout section, a homework section, and a quizzes section. And as a teacher, I can add stuff to those sections. So I think the homework section, this is me as a student, but if I go into Trudy, if I click on homework, you'll see that same page is there because me as a teacher, I've pushed that page out. So that's quite handy. You can make sure your students have the same pages in their notebook, and as a student, they can go in and write or add to these sections, and the other students won't be able to see these. Okay, any questions about the different sections of the class notebook? Feel free to come off mute or type in the chat. In which case, we might go back to our class team because our notebook should be set up by now. Okay, so hopefully you've all got something that looks similar to this in your class team. You just want to give me a thumbs up if you're seeing in your teams something similar to this. Thanks, Jenna. It does take a while for teams to do all the back work, so sometimes it doesn't show up, but hopefully most people are seeing something like this, or if you're not, then hopefully you can go back and go through the steps again a bit later. Okay, so viewing your class notebook actually in Teams isn't the greatest experience. So we might actually view it in OneNote. Now, if you don't have OneNote installed, probably best to keep on viewing it in Teams. That little book icon allows you to go to the different menus, and you'll see there's already those sections set up. But if you do have OneNote installed, if you click up here and go open in browser, but go open in desktop app, then that will open up OneNote for you and will open up your brand new notebook. Now, the reason why we go and do it that way rather than going to OneNote directly and trying to open it up is that often the notebook won't appear and then you have to search for it. So the easiest way to access it the first time, and you can show your students that as well, is through Teams. Okay, so I think we're now up to doing some page creation. So collaboration space, well, this first bit, you can, if you want to get rid of the pre-shielding text, you can just click, it's like a big giant text box, and just click on delete, and then you can enter your own thing. Same with this. If you want to get rid of this page completely, you can right click on it and go delete page. Same with the collaboration space, so we might just get rid of that. And then the content library, let's get rid of that page as well. And then we probably want to rename this. So to rename the sections, you can right click and just select rename section. So this might be term 3 unit 1 if I'm doing a science, doing a secondary subject, or it might be if you're teaching primary, it might be a subject area, or if you do a combination of subjects, it might be the unit name as well. Now, if I want to add more than one section in here, I just need to, instead of clicking on the actual name, just click on one of the sections in there and click on add section, and then I can add another section. Etc. Now, if you haven't used OneNote before, it might take a little bit of getting used to. You'll see it's called Untitled Page over here. If you put your cursor in here and type in here, what can we call this first page? About the unit. There we go. You'll see that whatever you type above that first line appears here. Again, if I want another page in this actual section, I can click on add page here, and then I can add another one. Formative. And then we might add another one that is and actually, because they're both talking about assessment, I might actually do another page and just call that assessment. And then I'm going to actually shift this one above. So I'm going to click, hold and drag. And then because I want these two to sit under assessment, I'm going to right click on it and go make subpage. Right click, make subpage. And then all my assessment sits nicely under there. Okay, so I've created another section. I've added some pages. I'm just going to go back into that example again. Actually, my teaching one, because you can see in this content library, I've actually color coded the different pages. So you'll notice that things in blue, if you don't know French, might look a bit strange to you, because they're all the subjects that are to do with French. And the things in yellow are all the things to do with English. And the things in green, they're all the specialist subjects for this particular class. So you might want to think about how you can use the color coding of the tabs to make the notebook easier for students to access. So let's go back and do my brand new one. And if I want to change the color, so I'm in this second section, I'm going to right click, and it's as simple as going to section color, and then I can choose it. So I might want red for all my units. And if I add one more section, and call this resources, For example, maybe I don't want that green. I can go in here and choose a different colour. So that's one way you can help students to navigate a class notebook as well. Okay, now the other thing I'm going to show you in here is we've created these new pages, but we probably want to put something on there. So let's try and put something in there. So you can go to insert, for example, and put in a table. So we might put in a table, formative assessment, so date view. I have task title, if I can spell title correctly. Marks. Definition. Okay, now the table isn't that easy to manipulate, but if you move and make the box bigger, then you can move and make the table bigger as well. Now I've got this in here, but say I wanted students to have some voice in my classroom and I wanted to share or them to give ideas around formative assessment, for example. Remember, in the content library, students can't actually add to this. So what I might want to do is I might want to copy this whole page and put it into my collaboration space. So I'm going to right click and I'm going to go to Move Copy, and it will automatically be in this notebook. Now notice if I click back, I can access any of the notebooks that I have. Now I've got a lot, but you might not. So I could move it to a different or copy it to a different notebook, which is handy if I've got several classes that are doing the same subject and I want to keep the class in a separate class notebook but not have to recreate the same pages all the time, then I might move it to a different notebook. But I'm going to keep it in this one. So then I can choose where I want. And because I want students to be able to add to this table, I'm going to go into the collaboration space. Now it has to go into a section and there's only one section in here, so let's put it in there. Now whenever I work, I normally like to do the copy instead of move. So let's just go copy. And then now if I go into my use in the collaboration space, you can see I've got that formative assessment there as well. Okay. Now where this comes in handy is in the teacher only section as well. If you've already prepped a whole lot of pages, you can just go right click on the page and we can go move and copy. Again, it might be from the teacher library to the content library in this case. And I would suggest you go copy rather than move again. The other reason, especially from the teacher only section, is that quite often if you're teaching year levels, the same year level the next year, or you might want a clean copy of something. So if you've moved it and then scribbled all over it when you were teaching, it's time consuming to erase all that annotation that you've done, which is why I prefer to do a copy rather than just moving. Okay, any questions at this stage? Feel free to come off mute or add something into the chat. As I said, we're a small group, so don't be afraid to ask away. Okay, so looking at the summary, we're now almost at the bottom of page 3. So I'm just going to quickly show you how you can insert some different media into your class notebook. So let's stay in the teacher only space, and I'm going to get rid of this. Now, say I was doing a workshop of some sort, and here we are. I couldn't find my folder that I needed for a moment. Here we go. Right, let's bring that out of the way so you can see my screen. So say I was doing I wanted to put in a copy of a worksheet, for example, that I wanted my students to use, or a PowerPoint. I could, in fact, just drag the PDF across, and then it's going to give me some options. So if I insert it as an attachment, it won't show up on the page, so I won't be able to do any annotation. If I upload to OneDrive, but it will be embedded in that OneNote. If I upload to OneDrive and insert the link, it will stay in my own personal OneDrive, so that's probably not a great idea. Or I can do insert as printout. So let's go insert as printout. Now, if you would like this PDF just so that you've got a PDF, I've just dropped it into the chat. So feel free to download and drop that across. Otherwise, if you've got a PDF or a Word document handy, you can try that yourself as well. So you see now I've got the PDF there, and I've got the icon here. So students can access the actual PDF document, but I can also see the printout, which has turned the document into a JPEG. And I'm going to cough again, so I'm just going to put myself on mute for a moment. Apologies for that. Okay, so if I've got this PDF just happened to be one page, so it's just given me one page. But if I've got a document that's multiple pages, it will just insert one tile up here for the document, but it will give me a whole lot of pictures down there, one picture per page. Now, another tip with this is at the moment, if I go to draw and change my icon to append, let's try again, and I actually draw on that, I might accidentally now move my image and my annotation's not in the right spot. So one other thing that you can do, let's just get rid of that, is if you click on the picture and you right click, you can go set a picture as background. That way, if I then go to my draw and draw on it, when I go back, I can't move that picture anymore, so my annotation's always going to stay on the right bit. So that's one handy thing to do, is to set your pictures as background so that you don't accidentally move things about and then wreck where you've done your annotations. Okay, so another thing in Class Notebook you can do, we just go back to the insert, is you can insert some audio, which is really handy as well, because especially if you've got students that are accessing the Class Notebook from class teams and are going into the content library, they might want their instructions as audio files. So let's go in this content library, and if I click on record audio, it should be recording my audio straight away. So when I press stop, I'm not sure whether this will work because I don't know if I clicked sharing my audio, but if I press play, No, could you hear that recording? Let's see, I might just check. I might just share my screen again and let's go in again. Let's try again. Sorry about this. It's not liking me trying to include my computer sound for some reason. So let's, hopefully you've been able to experiment and hear that that audio recording works, even though you couldn't hear mine. Unfortunately, you can't rename this. So if you want to, you might just need to put a label such as instructions for this task underneath the recording, but you can't name it, but you can delete it if you want to, and just press delete and then re-record. Okay, right, any questions around that? Everyone's still going okay? If you can just give me a thumbs up so that I know that you're still hearing me okay. Thank you. Okay, let's just go back in and check where we are. Okay, so another thing about Class Notebook is, let's go back to that page here where I put in my PDF file. Now, it might be fine to put in, thanks Sonia, to put in some PDFs if they're fairly small, like this is one page. But if you start putting in lots and lots of documents, your OneNote can get very slow to open and sync to people's devices. So the other thing you can do is you can link to files. So I'm just going to minimize my class notebook for a moment. Then I'm back in my class team. Now, the reason as well why I might want to do it through class teams is I can put all my files in here. I can link to my files in my OneNote, and I know that all the permissions are going to be okay. So my students will be able to access these files because they have access to this class team. So for this example, I'm just going to my general channel and I'm going to click on files. And it's going to take a little bit of time. Okay, so in a class team, if you haven't seen one before, there's a folder that gets generated automatically called class materials. Now, anything a teacher puts in this particular folder, students can't go in and alter or delete. So if you've got an assignment, for example, it's best to store it in class materials rather than outside of the folder. I did hear a story of one teacher's child was in a class where a teacher stored the files outside of class materials, and an assignment that was supposed to be 5,000 words long ended up as being 500 words long. So just be mindful about that. So I'm going to click on class materials and I'm going to drop that PDF in again. So that same one. And then I'm going to get the link to it. So there's those three dots there. I'm going to click on that. I'm going to go to copy link. It's telling me that people with access, so that would be all my students, can get the link. I'm going to click on copy. And then I can go back to my OneNote. And if I go Control V to paste, then that is going to just, because I've made that a background, it's going to be in the way. Let's move it up. So now I've got that link to that PDF. So I might get rid of that there. and that will mean that that document's no longer stored inside my OneNote, but my students can still access it through that link. So that's just something to think about. If you're going to be putting in lots and lots of documents, then the best way is to store the file in Teams and then copy and cross the link across. Okay, let's go back. So we've done audio and we've done files in Teams. Okay, so we're now, if you've been managing to follow along, on page 4 of the summary. And I'm just going to show you a little bit about assignments because this is one of the really nice features of Class Notebook and how it links with class teams. So let's just, we got, yep, that's all right. Let's just minimize that. And we're back in our class team. And now we're going to go to assignments. Again, because this is the first time that we've opened the team, it might be a little bit slow to come up. Okay, I'm going to click on Create. And I'm going to click on Assignment. If I've got one that I've already created, I could do that as well. Now, if you haven't used assignments before, there's a couple of things that are required before you can save, and one of them is a title. So let's just put in maths assignment. If I can spell. And then because this is, we want them to use that OneNote page, we're going to click on Attach. And we're going to click on Class Notebook. Now it's going to ask us where that page is. So we stored it in the content library, I think, I hope. Did we? No, we stored it in the teacher only. And I'm going to have to go back to my notebook to check where I stored it. Yep, and it was, let's rename that so that I know what the page is. Ask. There we go. Right. Let's cancel and try again. So attach, class notebook, teacher only. It hasn't renamed it yet. Let's have a look. No, but it should be all right. Let's press attach anyway. Okay, so it's attached that page there to the instructions bit, and then we can put where we want the students section to go. So let's put it in homework. And let's go, yep, student can edit their own copy. That's good. Let's go done. And then I can change all these bits as well. So I can change the due date if I want. I can add a rubric if I want. I can enter in some more instructions because that page wasn't very clear. So I can do all those things, but I'm just going to click assign for these purposes. Okay, so now when I click on that, I've got my one student in there. Hopefully, when they come up. Here they are. I can see it hasn't been handed in, but I can actually click on there. And this is opening that page in the teacher only section. And then when I click on, let's have a look. Yep. So then I can go in and have a look. So let's go back into my OneNote. should now have in my homework that maths task in there. So if I add something pretending I'm the student, right, and that is the same as, oh, no, it isn't the same. Let's rub that out. I better get it right. Oh, yes, it is. Okay. That's the same as 100 and the same as 100. Right. So now as a teacher back in Teams, if I go back in to my student one, hopefully I can see it. It might just be taking a little bit of time to sync. Let's close it and open it again. There we go. So now as a teacher, I can see that page. In the student's OneNote, I can see what they've done. If I want to, I can add something. So let's just give them a comment. And then again, that one now, if I go back into my OneNote and give it some time to sync, go off and go back in, you can see my student will see that comment that I've written as my teacher. So that's a really quick way to distribute a page to all my students, quickly see what they've done by going into my Teams and setting it as an assignment, and then I can go through and see each person's page just by clicking in here in my team. Okay, now on that handout, I've got about marking and rubrics, but I'm aware we've not got much time left. So the other thing on that handout is about reading progress. So I might open it up and do a quick poll on the fly when my poll loads, whether people want to see about reading progress or about rubrics. Or, yeah. Okay, so let's launch that one. And if you can quickly indicate what you'd like to find out about in the last 5 minutes before I do my wrap up. Howard, are you able to see the polls because you've joined as a guest? I'm not sure how that works. If you can't, if you want to type in the chat whether you want reading progress or rubrics. That doesn't help me, Howard. Okay. Yeah, I'll just wait for Sonia to finish typing, but it looks like I'll show you a little bit more to do with the rubrics, and then I'll show you some other resources that you can access. Okay, we might just go with rubrics. So I'm going to go back and we create a new assignment. Oh dear. Okay. Okay, yeah, I think assignments is coming out for use on the phone, Sonia. There's quite a lot of new releases that are coming out in time for the Northern Hemisphere going or starting the year in September and October. So there's quite a lot of new and exciting changes that are going to be roll out soon, but of course we haven't got them yet. And one of them is able to access assignments on your phone, but I don't think it's happened yet. So, okay, so we go create and we do an assignment again. We enter a title. We use the same document, but this time we call it Maths Decode. Whoops. There we go. I'm going to attach that page from my OneNote again. So attached, class notebook. It was in my teacher only space. And it was that maths page, maths task, attach. And I'm going to, instead of homework, so I don't get confused, this time I'm going to put it in handouts. So let's click done. And then I'm going to click on add rubric. So if I've created rubrics before, and you can see that I have created quite a lot because I used to use Class Notebook when I was a teacher, you can pick one that you've already created. If you are sharing assignments with other teachers, you can also download a rubric and then upload it as well. So if you were working and giving the students all the same assignment, I can't access other teachers' rubrics through Teams, but I can upload the rubric. But we're just going to go add rubric, give it a title, maths problem solving, add a description, so your problem solving, and then we've got the marking criteria. So I can say if it's points or not. So let's give it points. I can enter description here. So this is really bad. Correct answers or accuracy might be better. And then excellent might be all solutions correct. Now, it used to be that there was no spell check in here, but fortunately, Microsoft has fixed that. So now it does tell you when you make a spelling error. So we've got all solutions correct, most. And let's copy and paste that. Some view. Okay, I can then give this a weight. So maybe the accuracy is really important. So maybe I give that 90%. And then I might want to add some more. So it might be presentation. And then I can go ahead and do my different boxes here as well. Some junk for the purposes here. If I wanted to as well, I could add another column here. And if I've got too many columns, I can delete them as well. Now, if I didn't want one to be weighted more than the other, I can also go evenly distribute weights. If I change this one though, it won't automatically change that one. So just be wary that if you do play around with them without doing that evenly redistribute weights, make sure your maths adds up. Otherwise, you'll get students, I'm sure, pointing out that you made an error. Okay, so let's attach that. And I'm going to keep everything else as it is and click on Assign. And then this was my second one. So I'm going to go in there. Now remember, this is a new assignment. So my OneNote page that we saw before that had annotation was the first assignment. So when I go into this one, it will just be a blank page. So let's click here. And we should see, because it's a new assignment, yep, it's a blank page. And now we've got this rubric that's popped up here. So as well as being able to add comments, don't forget to show your working out, for example. You can also grade them. So accuracy, unfortunately, this poor person has got nothing right because they haven't handed it up yet. Presentation, well, it's neat. Let's give them 4 points. We can click on done. And then if I wanted to, I can click return. This person's obviously forgotten to do anything, so I might do return for revision. And then if I go in to their class notebook, let's hop out, and this time it was in handouts, I think. There's the maths task. So although it's got that comment there, it doesn't have that rubric because they'd need to go into their class teams to see the rubric. But they do get that comment. So that's one thing to think about as well. If you are using assignments and rubrics, the rubric doesn't show on their class OneNote. So they have to go into Teams to see it. But again, for that one, that's a really easy way to score students and an easy way to add comments straight onto their page in their OneNote. One thing about the rubrics I will point out is that it's not that easy to print the rubric off or share it in another way. I will send an email with a link to a YouTube around rubrics because a colleague of mine has created a macro in Excel to make the rubric look nice when you download it, because at the moment it looks awful when you download a rubric, but it is really handy for marking. Let's just click return there anyway. Poor student. Good job, it's me. And click on close, because now in my returned, I can see that mark that's showing up there for the student. Okay, we've just about run out of time. In fact, we have. Before we go, I will just show you 3 places where you can go for more information. So one place that is really, really full of self-learning is the Microsoft Learn Educator Centre. Now, it used to be, I've forgotten what it used to be, but it's just changed from May this year. So if you were using Microsoft Learning Pass before and you haven't looked at it this year, you might find that it's all changed on you. But when you do go in here, if you go to professional developments and browse all, and if you put in OneNote or class NoteBook, for example, then it comes up with some modules that you can do that take you through step by step different things to do with Class Notebook. Another place to have a look is, I will just pop the link to that in the chat as well. So another place where you can get some help as well is our team's YouTube channel. So if you go into the Microsoft, there's a whole lot of playlists to do with Class Notebook that take you through step by step, for example, creating links, which we did today, but most of them are really short around how to use Class Notebook. So that's another useful place to get started if you're stuck. And the last one that I will plug today, I think lots of you might already be a member, but if you're not, you can join this team here, the M365 App Support and Collaboration team. So I'll just grab the link to that. And you can always ask some questions under the Class Notebook. And someone either from my team or another teacher will answer and help you out. Thank you very much for joining me in this last week of the school holidays. I'm happy to hang around for a little bit longer if anyone has any specific questions. Other than that, hopefully the rest of this week goes well for you and you can rest student-free for 2 weeks. I know it's not a holiday when you're a teacher, but at least it's a bit of a break from students. So thank you, and I will stop the recording, but feel free to come off mute and ask any questions if you would like to ask questions.